Well, welcome everybody. So we're going to get started, and so I'm going to start this time. Usually we start with everybody who's on the call, but today I'm going to start with one of the online questions just to kind of grease the wheels and see where we get to. So we have a question from Rick Ward, one of our members. He said his right leg is about half an inch shorter than his left leg, and it creates an imbalance when he's in standing postures. And he says he unconsciously compensates, as he has done for many years. When this happens, he has difficulty with basic things like keeping his toes and heels together and balancing on the right leg, etc. And his question is, are there any suggestions of how he deal with this? So, Michelle, do you want to go first?
Actually, if you don't mind, Matt, let's hear what Rajeshri has to say, because I feel a little ill-equipped to answer this question.
Well, look,
Rajeshri, go ahead.
Yeah, I will tell you something that I will do with the patient. Sorry. See, I'm not ready. I'm in a party mode. I'm in a party mode. I'll do with the student. I'll make sure that I'll get like a towel and put it on the leg is short that he's feeling to make that comfortable. If the student is very brand new and coming right now, but how does he know that it is a shorter one side? Is it very short, or how many inches is short?
He said just half an inch, so it's quite a small difference in length. And the way we've only got the email from him, but I haven't spoken to him directly about it. But the way he's written the email suggests that it's something he's been aware of for quite some time, and he has practiced for quite a while.
May I suggest something?
Yeah, because I will go to you. Yeah, because why am I saying this? If this person is already been doing and it's a very short minor, he doesn't have to. She does that way to add any towel, because it could be sometimes the pelvic bone is up and down also on the hip joint. It's like a hips are not in a balanced position, or the pelvic bone is maybe a little twisted. That also can affect your legs. Many things can affect. I believe if he's already doing it and he's not having any pain, or it's not having any effect of his posture, is it obstructing the posture to go for advanced way, or is it obstructing for him to have a balance? What is the consequences he is facing?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Rick's not here, but I would say for Rick, Rick is I believe Rick has retired recently, and but he comes and he works hard at the postures. I don't think he's going in the Olympics anytime soon, but he concentrates and he works hard and diligently. So I think he just balance is one of the things that is challenged with that. And when we say toes and heels together, and can he bring his feet together and stand up straight without losing his balance, that kind of thing.
Okay, Karen, go ahead now.
As a nurse, the majority of us all have one leg that's shorter than the other. It's the majority of human beings. So it's and when you're balancing on one leg, when you bring your feet together, that's an issue because he feels a little off balance when his feet are together. When you're balancing on one leg, it doesn't really honestly matter if one leg is shorter than the other.
No, it doesn't. I agree with that.
Yeah. But what Rajeshri said, yeah, of course. I mean, it could be a structural issue somewhere else,
No, but it's how. That's why I asked right away that what is what is having difficulties
Just
and
the
how.
balance.
Yeah, only the balance. Yeah,
Yeah.
He's already practicing, so the balance comes not from the shortness of the leg. It comes from the muscles control.
Yeah,
that's the main reason. So it's not going to.
Cool. Thank you, Rajeshri. Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, my natural reaction is to go in that way, just because the way we do Bikram yoga, there isn't really props. So, working with what he has, and also because I've seen him over the years practice, I would have never known that had he not sent that question in.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know that. And, you know, part of me is just wondering too, is he frustrated that he can't balance?
Mm.
Is there more to that part of it? And maybe thinking that, you know, one leg is longer than the other, which could very well be, but is he more frustrated about not being able to balance, you know, and all that takes, right? That takes, you know, a lot of patience, your concentration, your abdominal muscles, you know, that's a lifetime journey in and of itself. So I hope Rick is going to listen to this. You know, and maybe he can, you know, ask us more questions, Matt, Sarah, and myself on property, right? If, you know, but, yeah, my thought process is that there's really nothing for him to change and just, you know, continue to focus and try to do the postures to the best of his ability. And maybe, who knows, there's something in, you know, with his muscular body that will shift his skeletal body,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that takes time.
For sure. Yeah.
I can't really add anything for all of that, actually. That's I do think that last part. I mean, I think everything is correct, but my experience of having a very, very minor imbalance, which I really only discovered through doing yoga, was in my case, that did happen, is happening, that they're using the muscles more correctly in the like so minor. It's just something I can feel. The slightly shorter leg has actually caused it to become closer to the other leg. It was actually a usage issue in my case. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add,
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I would add would be that if it only happens when his toes and heels are together, then it's probably a length imbalance, because that's the least state. If you have a length imbalance in your legs, that's the least stable position, kind of thing. You know, it's the thing that would amplify that imbalance in your if you already got weak balance. But otherwise, as you were saying, Michelle, I think it's probably more likely that struggling with balance in general, and then, you know, we tend to seek a cause for our imbalance. You know, when we struggle to balance, we would like to find a cause for it, where the truth is, as we say to our students, you know, there's this great secret that's been passed down through yogic tradition, which is that balancing is hard. It's not easy.
It comes and goes, right? It
Yeah,
comes and
exactly.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends what you ate and whether you've gone to the toilet and
Yeah,
whether you had a
right.
good night's sleep, or, you know, 1,000 variables.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one other thing I want to add on that too, because you got me thinking in Paschimottanasana and stretching. Brad's the one that pointed this out to me, and maybe you guys have noticed this too. You know, when I'm grabbing my toes and pulling my toes back, my left leg looks like it's shorter than my right leg. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I also know too that I've got some stuff going on in my left hip, and I know it's starting there, but it forces me, right, to use my muscular body to really work hard, because without it, I can feel like it looks like one leg is longer than the other.
Yeah.
And it isn't. So, you know, sometimes, you know, yoga brings awareness, right, to your own body. And, you know, a lot of it has to do with the usage over the years, right? You know, the wear and tear, and, you know, naturally some areas are going to wear out more than others, right? That's why we have the yoga to help with, you know.
I
That's
think
why
we also go to the idea that we are somehow like robots, that we've been put in you know, we're supposed to have come out with a factory with perfect, submicron alignment of our bones, and that's just not what human beings are. They're not perfect. You know, everybody is 32 centimeters, 0.1 millimeters. You know, it's just not that aligned, and it doesn't matter biologically. It doesn't matter. We tend to put our modern minds to saying, oh, because this is long and that's short, then I can't do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And that's just a modern brain interpreting falsely the biology, which is perfectly capable of dealing with stuff. I mean, look at a field of horses.
Yeah.
You know, they're not all exactly the same proportion, and they're perfectly fine.
But also, it's interesting you bring that up, because I think often humans think and that it's a human thing and it comes from this and that and the other. But horses actually have a right and left side. They have a dominant side, a non-dominant side. They have more ability on one side than on the other. So, you know, that's just one other species, which is, you know, so.
that's why for us we have a mirror. That's why we see ourselves.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
For sure. So, yeah, and we'll follow up with Rick, and also hopefully Rick will see this recording. So, I want to throw it up. So I've got two more questions we can come back to later that were submitted. But does anybody online today have Angie? Hey there, welcome.
Phil, good to see you guys.
Does anybody online have a question they would like us to dig into?
Claire?
If the question is where's the mute button, I'm afraid you're gonna have to figure that one out yourself. If you touch the screen, the controls usually appear, and then you can hit the unmute. Aha,
Took me a
thank
while.
you.
Sorry. Okay. So in awkward pose, the dialogue at the beginning says, you know, right foot step to the right, 6 inches apart, 6 inches between your toes and your heels. And this is something that has bugged me a long time. Like some people, I see their heels are in, some people their toes are out. It really bugs me that it's not 6 inches equal on every person. And I've been like looking at my feet, and my heels are much thinner than the front of my foot. So if I have my heels in a little bit, they're kind of invisible behind my toes, but I feel more comfortable having my heels out more so that it really feels like my feet are more parallel. So I've been stuck with this for, I don't know, a few weeks, where it bugs me that people's feet look so different in that posture. So anything you can give me, any ideas about that, I'm all ears. Thanks.
Rajeshri, do you want to comment?
No, I will listen. I will go
Okay.
last this time.
All right, Sarah, you're up.
My teacher would say, "What does the dialogue say?"
Yeah.
That would be his answer, I think. I mean, if I dared to say that. What does the dialogue say? 6 inches between toes and heels looks like perfect letter H. What I think is that when people have a way of, we're going back to legs, how we use our legs again. People have a way of using their legs, which makes it more comfortable to go with the drift of the heels in or out, or the toes in or out. But that when you actually maintain, that's the concentration incredible and awkward. When you maintain the 6 inches, you're causing the whole leg to work in the way that it should, to be able to do the posture to get the benefit to the joints. When you shift things around, it's very natural. It's almost like it's just a response. How you've always used your leg, you go back into what the body likes to do.
You sure?
Yeah, Sarah, that's good. So Claire, I'm hearing two things, right? What you see in class, you know, and by the way, today in class, which was interesting, I felt the opposite. I felt like people are actually doing more 6 inches apart and, you know, and keeping it that way, which is tremendously hard to do. Because I think once we move into the action of the posture, you're right, the heels start to curl in, right? But we're trying to strengthen the joints, you know, so the setup is key, and keeping that setup is key, because like Sarah said, if you don't keep that concentration, then you're just moving right back in that groove, right? Of how you've been interacting with your body the whole time. Right. So I don't know. I feel like in your case, if we're being specific to your question, I wouldn't get too heady about your heels being so small, you know, smaller than you know, the front part of your foot, and just do your adequate, you know, 6 inches apart, and just, you know, don't overanalyze. Just so I don't think, like, it's kind of like what Matt was saying, not everybody is, we're not robotic. We're all different and have, you know, different little nuances to, you know, the sculpture of our body, if you will, right? We're all pieces of art, right? So, are you having a problem in that posture when you?
I personally am not having a problem. I feel really comfortable when I move my heels out. And I think if I measure, like if I do the 2 fist thing, that I've got 6 inches between my toes, but then my heels are maybe further than 6 inches apart. I don't know. I'd have to really sit.
Well, here's the thing that you might interview is the moment that you set up the posture to the moment where you sit down, hips in the chair. What are your feet doing? Are
They don't move. My feet don't move. Once I put them in that. place, I'm fine. But I guess so my, using my own self as awareness, then I look around at my students and I think, well, he needs to turn his toes in or he needs to turn his heels out or, I look around at the students and I say, make sure you have 6 inches between your toes and your heels. But making corrections, like it just feels like everybody's feet are different. And I don't know that they all have 6 inches between their toes and their heels. And how do I correct that with the students?
So I have something to say on that. I think if you look at their knees and you look at their hips, it will tell you what's going on. So
Okay.
the dialogue obviously is a set of generalized instructions that are asking you to put your feet in good general alignment to prepare to bend your knees and use your hips together in a
Mm-hmm.
good healthy alignment. So there is a point where we are asking people to bring their body to the yoga, not modify the yoga to suit the default comfort point of their body.
Right.
And so somebody who has pronated hips, like their knees are way out, they're typically naturally going to want to turn their feet out, and they're going to try to come down like that, but they're not. Their knees are slightly twisted, their hips are slightly twisted, and so for them you would see that not just in the position of their feet, but when they come down, particularly into the first part of awkward, it would become blindingly obvious that their knees were very wide. Another example is where people naturally want to take a bigger step than 6 inches again, perhaps because they've been trained in like squats or something, but or just because it feels more comfortable. So there's a point to why the feet are the way they are, but it's not about getting out a micrometer and checking millimeter by millimeter.
Yeah.
But everybody's front foot is wider than their heel. It's extremely rare to encounter somebody whose heel is as wide as the front of their foot. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the specific, the generality. But if you're concerned about who you should be correcting, when they go down into the first part of awkward, look what happened to their hips and their knees.
Good.
Because
I can see
that'll
that.
tell you if their knees are 6 inches apart, or hip width apart, and they come down good, clean, straightforward bend, and their foreleg is not twisted relative to their upper leg, which would happen if their feet were unnaturally twisted one way or the other, then they're in a good, healthy range of motion, and then that's great. So I wouldn't get too singularly focused on the position of the feet, but still the dialogue is there to give people that good general foundation, and that's going to work for 98% of the people in the room, 99% of the people in the room. That's my take on it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been bugging me and I've been hung up on it. So thank you. I just wanted to bring it here.
Can I just add and say that Matt is right? So I have the same issue. So exactly what Matt was saying, my knees tend to come in that first part awkward, and I have to really work to keep the knees 6 inches apart, right? So you see it with students, some come in, as Matt said, and knees come in, some knees come out, and then the feet turn in, or because of the hip is coming in. And so later in the dialogue, we do say 6 inches between toes, heels, knees, and hands, right? So then ultimately the alignment is all throughout. So Matt just wanted to say, yes, it happens to me too. And
there is a line
that's
right
right.
before that in the dialogue, which is specifically open your knees. And it's not like a throwaway, it's actually open your knees. And it really makes a huge difference. When we went to Thailand last time, Bikram made a emphasis on it. Open your knees. And when you do it, you feel stronger. Everything's in the right place, and you can sit down a little bit more if you really concentrate.
Because I think in that posture, as much as you're working your ankle, your feet, your ankles, and your knees, you're also very importantly working the muscles of your hips, both the primary muscles of the hips and all the stabilizing muscles around the hips. So whether your knees are out or in is going to make a huge difference to what aspect of the hip is engaged. And it turns out actually that, just as an aside, that the ability to sit down like that in older age is correlated with better long-term health and longevity. So it's one of the exercises that is advised for people as they get a little bit older, is to learn how to use that. And again, it's not the gym squat with wide knees that are like 12, 18 inches wide. That's a different kind of thing, and it works in different muscle groups. But that keeping the legs parallel and sitting down and standing up and sitting down and standing up is really impactful for the health. So I think, Claire, that I would say the alignment matters, but don't get a ruler out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh yes, Rajshi, do you want to add anything to that?
Nothing to add. We talked about it. Two
Yeah.
things. It's very straightforward. Everybody's feet will be different. It's obvious.
Yeah.
And second one is that don't hang on to measuring everybody's. And so what's the purpose of doing? Just follow that. Open your knees and sit down. Yes. That's Karen. You have anything?
No, you covered everything that I would have contributed as well. Yes, it's just focusing and watching and meditating on ourselves in the mirror, and encouraging our students to do the same, and so that they can, be their own, their own teacher, watching and meditating on their alignment. And it's so typical, especially when with new students, but it's yes, it's everything you covered was precisely what I would have contributed. So
You keep repeating same thing again and again. At least they hear it. One point they hear it. Okay, okay. Because it's for us also the same thing. We all know, even our own practice, sometimes we are we are not in mindful and we do things. So we just keep remind the student.
I'll just add one more thing. So when I first was practicing that line about, open your knees. Well, for me, I had to close my knees. They were further than 6 inches apart. And I don't know if that's when I started turning my heels out more, because I don't have to do that anymore at all. It's very, very aligned.
Yourself
Yeah.
experience, and you can teach the others the same way.
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah. Excellent.
Another question?
I have one. I too have something that's been noodling in my mind, like Claire, for a different posture, standing bow pulling pose. So I wanted to talk about, well, first of all, I'm assuming that standing bow pulling pose is a backward bend with a spine twist. And so if my assumption is incorrect, please tell me now, because my question is based on that entire assumption, but I don't think I'm incorrect. But with that, if the standing bow pulling pose is a backward bend with a spine twist, there is a part in the dialogue that tells us, bring your body down from the lower spine until your abdomen and chest are parallel to the floor. So what I want to ask is, how is a back bend happening if your abdomen and chest are parallel to the floor? In my mind, a back bend in standing bow pulling pose is abdomen parallel to the floor, but chest lifting up, because you're, backward bending, you're kicking your legs so hard behind you. And so that's my question. We never later say, lift your chest up in the dialogue. That's the only instruction in the dialogue where we say, bring your body down, abdomen, chest parallel to the floor. Later in the dialogue, we say, bring the body down more, bring the body down more. So, and I ask this question because as a teacher and as a student also, what I often see is students charge their body forward, they come down, and, their back is generally flat, and there's really no dynamic exertion of the equal and opposite force of kicking and stretching, right? And so I know how I've corrected in the past, or I've given some instruction about kick more, right? Then they kick, they fall out, well, because they didn't stretch more, kind of thing. So I guess I have two questions. One, if it's a back bend and a spine twist, why is it that the abdomen and chest are parallel to the floor? Why is there no further instruction, and how can we interpret that further? And then also, second question is, how do we, as a teacher, encourage students to have that dynamic engagement with the posture? Thank you.
So I'm actually going to take that one. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask you a question. Why do you have to have a theory of what that posture is to be able to teach the posture. You know, the idea that it's a back bend with a twist is a concept that you have of the posture. And the concept is getting you entangled in how to teach it. So my question is, why do you need a concept of the posture as opposed to the actions to take in the posture?
I think it's because, you know, the beauty of the yoga is that there are therapeutic benefits to every posture, right? And that the sequence is set up so that we do a forward bend followed by a backward bend, or a backward bend followed by a forward bend, and then traction of the spine or spine twist. So there is beauty in the sequence. And I think the beauty of the sequence is what is happening to the spine. And so that's why I think I have a theory, because we're doing standing bow pulling pose right after our forward bend, our deepest forward bend so
I have
far.
a question for you, Joanne, then. Another question then. So what happens if you grab your foot and you kick your leg back and up, and you come down and you stretch forward and try to touch from it and kick your upper leg up as hard as possible? What happens to your spine if you kick up as hard as possible on a locked knee and stretch forward as much as possible and try to touch the mirror? What happens to your spine?
Your spine bends and twists.
So then the issue is the actions to take. It's not about whether it looks right. That would be my take on it. We often get sidelined in our teaching of a posture if we have a concept of the posture, like it's a back bend. So for instance, I have this with one of my students who's very flexible. She can kick up in that posture, but she's not remotely trying to touch the mirror. Now her spine is bending, but she's not doing standing bow pulling pose, or at least not as the words teach the posture. She's doing a surrogate dancer pose because she knows how to do dancer, which is a different posture and not standing bow pulling pose.
Right.
Anyway, that's my take. I don't know who else wants to.
Okay. And that one thing that, you know, often as a beginner or someone who's had a recent injury, who is, you know, they charge your body forward, kick your right leg up and back behind you, is even when they come down and they appear to be like their abdomen and chest is parallel with the floor, remember you still have your head. So your cervical spine, if you were completely parallel, your chest, abdomen were parallel with the floor, and you were making a letter L, and there was no backward bend, that would mean you were tucking your chin in the floor, so your head would be parallel with the floor. So because our chin is up, so you're looking forward in the mirror, it's actually, you are backward bending. They're backward bending more than you think they really are, even though it doesn't look like this, the symmetry is all there. They, you know, the abdomen, chest, that portion, the spine may look like it's flatter, but remember, they still have their cervical spine, their head. So it is still happening, but maybe just not to the level and the degree of the expression of what we're visualizing for them one day.
Michelle, do you have anything you want to do?
You know, all of it is great information and, you know, good question. I appreciate, Matt, what you were saying, because I think we got to be careful too that we don't get, you know, caught up in some things that help us not see the trees through the forest kind of thing. But what I do appreciate what you're saying, Joanna, is I think you're asking for a little bit more precision, right?
Yes.
And I think one of the, I'm just giving you my opinion, you know, I think remember, this is Bikram's beginning yoga class, right? And I think one of the things that does not happen 90% of the time, and again, I'm giving you my opinion, maybe even a little bit more, is that we don't bring our body down enough, right? So, you know, and remember who you're teaching to, right? So, you know, abdomen, chest come down until your abdomen, chest is parallel to the floor. And again, right, just what we talked about in the first question, it's almost like you've got to say that 1,000 times before you get somebody to move even a millimeter closer down, with their body getting closer, right? And the equal and opposite force is going to take care of, you know, the back bend, but most of the time, right, we're not getting down enough, right? So to say that with such a command to a Bikram's beginning yoga class, I think it is precise, because then you're not getting confused. You got to bring your body down. You've got to bring your body down, right? You know, and Bikram will even say, you know, stretch and kick, body down and kick, right? He'll keep it short too, right? To get it to go down. So, I agree. We don't say, yes, bring your abdomen down, but lift your chest up. But I think it's natural, right? With the kicking and the stretching that your cervical spine. But I think the biggest point, the priority is you've got to get your body down, and you don't see that. You don't see that enough in a posture like that, right? It takes years and years and years even myself, Matt and Sarah know, and Claire knows, taking the class that I've had to get. It's taken me 20 years to get my body down to the way that it's supposed to be. So
same. And you told me when I took class with you, you were like, Johanna, bring your body down.
Get your body down, girlfriend. Yes, I've never seen it. And your chin is away from your shoulder, right? It's like you got to challenge yourself. You got to use your standing leg. You got to use your kick. You got to be all in. And I think we have a hesitation to back off. And we're backing off, right? We're leaning back. You see it all the time. You see, well, I am going forward, but no, I'm not, right? Like, so I'm not Bikram. Rajshri, what you want to contribute here, right, to this, but I
just want to know, Joanne, are you competitor? Do you compete in competition, yoga competition?
No.
Okay, because that's the language they speak. Because is it a traction pose or is it a back bending pose? That's why I just didn't know how you can mark the posture like that way. So I was like surprised, because forward bend, backward bend, parallel, like maybe we just talk about as giving the posture workshop when we do. But basically we never mark this is a beginning yoga class.
Yeah. No, I think it's just, it's informed by my own practice. Okay. And then going, and then teaching, as we've all said, a beginner class. So, but even as Michelle, as you're saying, you have a lot of students that just come down, or we're just creatures of habit, right? And so you have a lot of students that come down, but don't kick and stretch. And then like you and I, Michelle, we don't bring our body down enough, even though we think we are. So, and I do agree that if you are kicking as hard as possible and you're stretching to touch your fingertips to the mirror, that corrects it in and of itself, right? The chest will lift without a doubt. Biomechanically, that's what's going to happen. But I just was curious, because the dialogue says bring abdomen and chest parallel to floor. We don't hear anything about the chest anymore later. And I said to myself, I think it's probably because we keep telling students to keep kicking and keep stretching, equal and opposite force.
Exactly. Yeah. We have to leave.
We're so sorry. We have to, but I would like to stay longer.
It's lovely to see you guys. Yes. I'm glad you were able to make it this long.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for including me. And it's so nice to see all of you.
Karen is very excited. She's enjoying it, Michelle.
You're always welcome to join us.
Yes. And she has a lot of medical background, so she can give some of the...
Great. We do it once a quarter, so as we let Rajshri know, we can let you know too.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Bye then.
For you. Bye.
Yeah. Sarah, did you have anything?
Very briefly, because it was all correct what everyone's saying. In Bikram will say about Camel, not to tell people to lift their chest up, right? It's because right at the end, as you come out, chest up, but not to tell them. And if you say lift your chest up, he would be very angry if he hears you say it, right? Because and then there is this don't you do that as an experienced practitioner? Don't you find yourself doing that? But that's from the instructions. That's the result that you're doing from the instructions. I actually have the feeling that if you said to many people who are normal practitioners, especially beginners, at some point in standing bow, lift your chest up, you would get a very weird response, which wouldn't be therapeutic. They try to do some strange thing with their spine. So much better to just let them do, and then keep giving those instructions until it becomes apparent.
Yeah. I mean, you have the primary instructions from the dialogue that really will help you. The person who has a flat back, who's down really low, flat back, needs to kick up more. The person who hasn't come down enough needs to come down and stretch forward more. And then the person who's doing neither needs to do both. I mean, it's I think, one thing I've been humbled by in my journey with teaching is that the dialogue is really simplistic language. and that's not an accident. It's entirely deliberate, and it contains great sophistication in those words. That half the journey sometimes is to realize that what we're asking is much simpler than you might think. So like when we say try and touch the mirror, we mean try and actually touch the mirror, or try to touch the ceiling. You know, it's literally take on that action and try it with all your might, kind of thing. So I think, you know, I would say for any time you have a categorization, a theory about how the posture should be, always just go back to those basic words and think, what's the simplest interpretation of those words, and does that answer my question? That would be my take.
Can I say one other thing? I also think that, given that Matt said about that, the simplicity of it, what we discover as we practice for ourselves is what underlies the simplicity, right? You start to understand, oh, this happens and that happens. Bikram Yoga is not a system like Iyengar where they try to explain all of that to you. You keep saying, try to touch the mirror, kick and stretch, kick and stretch equal and simultaneous. So in a sense, everybody has to discover that by their own practice. They keep practicing and they get, oh, if I kick more, then I have more satisfying posture. And then they probably look to you, how you think it should be occurring, they're getting the benefits. But we've gone through that. So, and we're going through it. So I think it's Terry Almquist who says, don't teach your own practice, teach the dialogue, because then when you teach your own practice, it's your discovery, it's your way of thinking about it, but you have to let the person make theirs. Because it is outside simple, all the complexity is inside in your experience of it. You don't have to give words to it.
So I was just, Hannah had a question about where's the spine twist in standing bow. Well, of course, you know, when you try and stretch forward and kick back and up, you're going to cause your shoulders to come into one line facing the front mirror, but your hips are not in one line facing the front mirror, so it causes a twist in your spine, and it's unavoidable. I mean, the degree of it obviously depends on range of motion, but that twist is inevitable as you know, as soon as my upper body stretches forward and kicks back and up, then everything in the spine is going to twist.
But at least for me, that wasn't in the beginning. I wasn't getting it at all. So it's come through learning to practice.
Well, often students, especially with the hand that's gripping the foot, tend to tighten the shoulder, preventing that shoulder from going backwards. And then it projects into the arm stretching forward. So they're stretching forward like this rather than allowing that to happen.
And the other one going back.
Again, they can't bring the shoulder to the chin either, because they haven't allowed the upper body to twist.
So you can't make people do that either. They have to do the actions.
It's impossible for me. I've never been able to get my shoulders. I'm miles away. So that doesn't feel like a twist to me. So
Keep trying.
Yeah, keep trying. Absolutely.
Get the benefit in the trying.
Well, so there is one something you can try, Hannah, as a little experiment, which is you can try to hold on to something behind you like a ballet bar, and plant your feet so they're both parallel, you know, so they're just like you were standing, and have your arm behind you holding the ballet bar at full extension, and then stretch forward and try to touch the mirror. And and again, literally try to touch the mirror with all of your might and all of your effort and all of your breath. Try to touch the mirror, and make sure your grip is behind you, centered behind your butt on the ballet bar, or something like that, something you can grab on that's not going to yield and go crashing forward. You know, and you'll find that it's learning to, you know, like all these things, the flexibility is really about learning what to relax and what to tighten, and you have to be doing both to gain that range of motion. So part of you needs to tighten, and part of your body needs to relax to allow your shoulders to move and to allow your arm to extend. So that's one thing you can try. The other thing you can try to do is just try and do the posture so close to the mirror that you're literally within an inch of the mirror, because then your mind gets a little bit more competitive about the possibility of actually touching the mirror.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe it's my shoulder. I don't think now which body part is preventing my shoulders, my chin.
No, nothing wrong with you.
No.
Not going to let you go there.
God damn. No.
No.
Give me a problem.
It's funny how that happens, right?
It's one of those workshop things where you could do
Yeah,
this in a workshop and you might have an aha moment, and then
yeah,
literally from that day forward everything would be different. You still have to work on it, but it would open the door. It would open your relationship to your shoulders
But
and
you
your
know, where
spine.
you pointed made me think it's the scapula. The
Yeah.
shoulders moving from the scapula always. If you point up there, then that's the issue.
When on my training, when
Yeah.
it's so funny you should say that on my training, when Manali I can't speak, when Manali introduced me to Bikram for the first time and they were speaking in Bengali or whatever, the one word was tall person. I heard that, and then deltoids, problem with the deltoids. And
Ah,
that's what
right.
he's always said to me from that was 2018. And so, but in a way, like Michelle's just said, I almost have that stuck in my head in
yeah.
practice. I have a problem with my deltoids. I've made myself attach
Mhm.
myself to that.
Yeah.
Mm,
So
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of got to forget that.
Yeah.
mm.
But
There's one other variation as well, Hannah. If you do have some obstacle related to the deltoid, which is there's the reverse position, which is stand arm length away from a ballet bar, facing the ballet
okay.
bar, and hold the ballet bar in the center of your body, and then fall backwards.
Oh,
And
okay.
fall
Yeah,
back as
yeah,
much
yeah.
as you can without letting go of the ballet bar. So it will force your shoulder to come forward, and then you've got to learn to yield into that relationship, so that you keep the strength of the shoulder but not the stiffness of the shoulder. And you should allow the scapula to come forward and allow the upper body to twist and just hang on the arm. And again, these are like physical therapy type exercises you can do,
Yeah.
but it's not about changing your body, it's about changing your relationship to your body. Your body's fine, I'm sure.
Sure. Oh, amazing. Thanks.
Good stuff.
Why don't I go for another online question? So we have a question from one of our teachers, Michael, who unfortunately couldn't be here, and a very simple question. In fixed firm pose, should the hips be touching the floor before going back? It seems like when someone's hips are unable to touch the floor, even with open knees, it's too soon. In a webinar discussing discipline, it was said that it should make no difference, but in my experience with injured knees, it does. I'm concerned about people going back before their knees are ready. So Michelle, why don't you start?
Well, I go back to, my teacher training because, I think we tend to, all of us, right? When we go back to the source where we learned it from, that's the thing that has the most weight. I always go back to that, right? And I can hear Bikram, I think I said this in class the other day. I mean, back in those days, right, he would tell you that, imagine that you're sitting on a big fat telephone book and you're taking out one page at a time. Right. So, you got to get the setup right. You have to make sure, right, that you're sitting down Japanese method, hips on your heels, and then you take your feet out, make sure that your feet are straight away. And if there is any pain, right, that you can't tolerate, then you would open up the knees and he would have you open the knees wide, as long as your hips and heels were against each other. If your hips didn't touch the ground, that did not stop Bikram from having you move on. He would still tell you to place your hands on your feet, thumbs in, fingers out, and then go down. In fact, he was more or less like a cheerleader to a lot of people that had complete. Claire knows this because I was at Thailand when Claire came, about a year and a half ago now. And, Claire, you struggle with this posture with your knees. And he was all, about you, helping you to try to get your elbows down. And you could see the fear, in Claire's face. And that's a lot of times what it is there's a fear, right? That is preventing you from moving on, more of a mental one than there is the actual physical one. So yeah, you can't be reckless with your knees, but I have never heard Bikram, or have I ever seen Bikram say or seen that your hips have to be touching the floor before you go down. I've not ever seen that or ever heard that out of Bikram. So I do think that Michael's question, I think that is teachers and students here. This is probably the most diverse posture out of all the postures. All the students are different. Everybody is different in this posture. Some can go into it relatively easy. Some, just kind of take their time. Others have, like I said, complete, hesitation. The others have striking fear, right? But you've got to challenge yourself with it. It's good for the knees. It healed Bikram's knees, right? It healed Nash. If you guys know who Nash is, he talks about. I mean, this is not a posture that you back off from, but you've got to be very aware. And then we talked about this in another Q&A, where sometimes I think we're coming up having water right away, and we sort of get a little bit, you know, silly or unaware in the setup of the posture. And I think we've got to really take our time. You know, you got to go internal. Okay, what's going on with my knees, and keep it in the right direction, and then try to go down enough, right? Where you're getting something out of it, and then turn around and get on your back and let all that high speed blood move into the knees and the feet. It's not one, it's a posture everybody needs. Everybody's feet are different nowadays, right? You see people's feet because we're just crouching them in our shoes and our toes are constricted. I mean, this is a big posture. So anyway, there's many aspects to Michael's question, but the main point that I'm addressing right now is you still can move on with your hips not touching the ground.
I don't have anything. What Bikram says is what I agree with. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah.
It's correct.
I mean, the only thing I would add is really just emphasizing what you said as well, Michelle, which is it's very easy for us contextually in our brains to slip away from the idea that the yoga is therapeutic, that trying the right way as best you can and not giving up is the ultimate destination, to start to shy away from that back to our sort of societal defaults, which tend to be more cautious. And so, you know, it's that posture is about, you know, one of the key benefits of it is the impact it has on the knees, and that impact isn't generated by avoiding discomfort in the posture. It's created through the position that you put the body in to a tolerable degree of discomfort where the breathing is normal and calm. So I think sometimes we look at that and we get into that safety mindset, and then we start to look at postures and how they're done from a safety mindset. And it will cause us to back away from doing the yoga, and I think that's, you know, the wrong direction for us to be going in. I mean, obviously you shouldn't be doing something insane and barreling into a posture at 100 miles an hour, but that's not really the issue here.
I would say actually one thing was purely technical. The way that the dialogue asks you to set it up, sit down Japanese style, separate the feet. That means only just move them apart. Then if it's painful, open the knees. That will actually put you in the best position to do successfully. This is why that has to be followed. It can't just be randomly opening your knees, sitting on your feet, turning your feet out, all the rest of it.
It's one of the most common things, I think, with students that open their knees prematurely. You know, it's like open your feet and sit down. Today, I mean, who cares about the last 100 times you did it? The last 100 times you might have had to open your knees, but you don't know that you're going to have to open your knees today. So sit down, Japanese style, separate your feet, sit down on the floor between the feet so the heels touching the hips, and then, if need be, open the knees a little bit at a time.
I would even say, Matt, not just today, but even between first and second set.
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally different from one set to the next. Absolutely. Yeah, Michelle, you look like you.
Yeah, I'm just reiterating, you know, everything is done in sequential order. So by the time you've gotten to that posture, you're warmed up. You're not doing this cold, you know. And I think the other thing is too, is that a lot of the dialogue, you know, we need to recognize that it's built on safety, and the way in which you do the setup is going to keep you safe. Right. So, and you know, one of the main reasons why too, you want to keep your hips and heels together, right, and your feet flat, is because you're keeping your knee in a hinge joint. You're not torquing it, you know, into a position that it shouldn't be in. So the feet position is talking to the knees.
Absolutely.
So the other point I want to share with you though too on this is I had a gentleman today in class, and you know, I asked him to move his heels out a little bit more, and he was flat out. He just looked at me and he did, I am not going to do that. And you know what? That was his yoga that day. He had no way, shape, or form had any trust that he could do any more than that. And you got to go there too. That's okay. You know, that's the information he was getting today, and there's no way you can work with something. If there's fear, then that something will happen. So, But it's an interesting posture. It's one that I find is got everything. It's got physical and it's got a lot of mental stuff going on, So, but necessary. It's a necessary posture. Interesting where it's put too.
Okay, so hey, Bobby, welcome.
Bobby House.
So, does anybody else have another question?
I have a question.
Jeff.
Yes. I believe, okay, this is about rabbit, and I believe in the secondary dialogue, it says it pretty clearly to be pulling on the heels. However, I think that's being not really exactly true. You're not really pulling on the heels at that point. You're really lifting the hips up to create an effect of your hands being pulled off your heels. And your goal is to keep tight grip so it doesn't happen. So saying I said pull more on your heels. As I said, I thought, is that right? I don't think that's right. It's not part of the first original dialogue, I don't think. Just hang on to your heels. And in the secondary, I think it mentions it. So is that the case? Because pulling the heels would mean you're bending your elbows, and you're certainly not trying to have your arms bent in that position. So are we pulling the heels or not? Or should we say that?
What does it say in the dialogue?
It says it in the
Bold
secondary
in the
dialogue.
dialogue.
So,
Bold is pull.
yeah. So in the dialogue, in the main dialogue, pull your heels as hard as possible. In the additional dialogue, pulling is the object of stretching. The harder you pull, you can stretch more, create opposite force, according to Newton's third law. So I
Thank
think,
you, Claire.
Yeah, pull your heels as hard as possible, right, in the first original. And that's before you even go down, so you really can't even pull your heels at that stage because you're sitting on them. So I'm curious also, mainly about instruction for others as well as for myself. Because it
I'm
doesn't
not
seem to me that you're really
sure,
pulling the heels.
but yeah,
You're-
I don't understand the
Wow.
question. What's the question? If we should pull or not?
Right, because pulling would infer that you're bending your elbows, and that's clearly not. You can't really pull unless you start bending your elbows, right?
you have shoulder blades, don't you?
I don't know, haven't checked. Yeah, of course, what do you mean?
Pat yourself on the back and just see if they're still there.
Yeah, but in
Yeah.
Janu Shavasana, right, we're pulling our toes back as hard as possible, and there was no, I don't understand, Jeff. You're getting, you don't, in rabbit, if you're not pulling, you're not stretching, right? What do you think you're doing? You're just holding?
Well, in rabbit, it seems like that's what we should be doing is just holding and creating the effect of the hands coming off the heels by lifting the hips up.
No, not at all, not even remotely. This,
So when you pull your heels, you bend your elbows.
So you have two ends to your spine. You have the bottom and the top of the spine. At the bottom of the spine, you have the hips, the pelvic structure. At the top of the spine, ignoring the head for a moment, you have the scapula, the 16 muscles connecting each scapula to the body. So when you pull using your scapula, you're exerting tremendous force on your rib cage and your spine. And so in
So you pull it with
rabbit,
your shoulders, practically? Is that
yes.
what you mean?
So in rabbit, you're using your shoulder blades as a very important part of the process. Obviously, you're using your abdominal muscles as well, and you're using you're lifting your hips up, which means you're using your quads and your hamstrings and other thigh and hip muscles. So there's a lot happening. But I think the question really is always just is go back to the dialogue. And rather than thinking that the dialogue might have got it wrong, think about what's missing in my understanding that has me think
Well,
that.
then tell me what I'm missing in my understanding, because it doesn't make sense to me when you
So
say pull the heels
the pulling is part of it.
at that point. Hmm?
The pulling is part of the movement of the spine. Michelle.
So you're pulling your
Yeah,
you're pulling
I'm
your
just
heels
saying but think
with
about
your
the
shoulders.
setup. Think about the setup, right? You exhale, eyes open, lift your hips up as high as possible. A. Roll forward like a wheel until your arms, elbows are straight. B. Right? So the elbows are straight. You've just set yourself up, right? Any gap between your knees and your forehead, close that gap, right? Now pull. Now you've set everything up. So you have the ability to have the leverage of the equal and opposite force to do the one thing that needs to happen, which is stretch the spine, right?
And what are you pulling with? How do you pull your heels? Like Matt, you were saying you use your
But if you're
shoulders
just holding
to
tight,
pull
then
the
you're
heels?
not stretching the spine, right?
Well, if you're lifting
You
your
can
hips up,
hold,
that's going to be holding up, stretching the spine, right?
well, if you're lifting your hips up and pulling and everything else is static and in place, then the only thing that can move is your spine. The
But
only
how are you pulling? That's my question.
Using your
How
shoulder
are
blades
you
with scapula.
pulling without bending your elbows?
Using what he said.
Maybe
That's
that's,
why shoulders away from the ears in the additional
Yeah.
dialogue. Relax your
yeah.
shoulders.
You're using the scapula. So this is
But shoulders away from the
analogous
ears.
to standing head to knee. The only difference in standing head to knee, the elbows are clearly bent. But you know, you can hang from a bar. Let's say you're hanging from a bar using both hands, and you relax your shoulders, so you're hanging at full extension of your shoulder blades. You can lift yourself up several inches without bending your elbows, just
I've
using your
not tried
scapula.
that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a type of lift that's done for training that's exactly that. But in our postures, we train the shoulder blades in a lot of different postures. You know, awkward, for instance, and well, yeah, awkward we use for stretching the arms, but in lots of different postures. Anytime our arms are straight, we're typically learning how to use the scapula. In half moon, we learn how to use the scapula. In standing bow pulling, in you know, in so many different ways, we're learning how to use the scapula. So by the time we get to rabbit, we've already been doing a lot of stuff. In Cobra, you know, we're learning how to move the scapula. In locust, in a lot of different postures.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm curious why you think you need to bend the elbows in order to pull. Why?
I would say is with I think maybe the idea came with Paschimottanasana after that, with both feet front, and you have your fingers around your toes, and you pull your toes as hard as possible, and you bend your elbows down towards the floor. So that's where that action kind of appears to me as being, yes, I can see that as a pull. And yet when I'm hanging onto my heels, pulling my heels isn't going to be the same way as that.
It's funny because I see it the
Because
opposite
you
way
don't want to
around.
bend your
If I
elbows
had
in
my
this
arms
position.
completely straight, as someone whose legs are flat on the floor and feet are flexed, if I had my arms completely straight in Paschimottanasana, I'd feel like I was pushing, not pulling at all. So
Say that again, say that again, I missed it.
if I had my arms completely straight in
Mhm.
Paschimottanasana, I would feel like I was pushing and I had no ability to do. But so it's a different structure of the same movement. With the but the elbows might start off bent, but then you know roll forward like a wheel until the elbows are straight. Walk your knees. Yes, so they might start off bent as you get into it, but it's the opposite way around. It's opposite
Right,
posture.
you roll forward until they're straight.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know this doesn't actually answer your question, but in one of the recordings that we have, Bikram says you have to pull throughout the entire posture to stretch your spine. He says it in rabbit. So his intention is that pulling is to stretch the spine. And you have the words
Okay,
of the
and my
dialogue to say
question
how
is,
to do
how do I
it
pull without bending my elbows? That's,
from the
that's why I
shoulder
don't get.
blades. So
from the shoulder blades,
find
yeah.
your shoulder
Shoulder
blades,
blades,
and it's
okay.
not unusual. It's not unusual that you haven't found them. Like I was only saying before, I didn't find my back shoulder blade, the kicking leg in standing bow for a long time. When I did, I understood it. It's not unusual that we haven't found a body
So
part.
sometimes you'll
Oh, yeah.
encounter a student, sometimes you might be that student, but sometimes you encounter a student that really struggles with how to do what you're asking. And so sometimes looking at where they're grabbing their heels on their feet, if they grab too much to the end of the heel, the back of the heel, it can be very hard for them to get that sensation of pulling. And so sometimes you might say, move your hand down a little bit so you're really fully holding the heel in the fullness of your palm. So effectively slightly closer to the middle of it.
Oh.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah.
And
Joanna's leaving. She
I can
Oh.
test that out.
yeah, so try that too. But then
Experiment
you
with
get the
that.
sense, just like, when you're in Paschimottanasana, you grab the big toes and you lift your chest up. Your arms are dead straight at that point before you go into the posture, before you get the instruction to bend the elbows. But you can still pull. You can pull on the toes. You can pull with straight arms.
Not very efficiently.
Oh, sure you
I
can.
couldn't.
You just need to learn how to use the
yeah.
shoulder blades and the spine.
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
Matt,
Yeah.
I said I wouldn't interrupt you, and I did.
Yeah, no, Michelle, go on.
Yeah, thank you. I love this, Jeff, because I can remember, when you start really doing this, you guys, right? All of a sudden you're like, well, wait, well, how does and why, right? I kind of like that.
Mm.
I feel like, it makes you tear it apart. And, it's like Tiger Woods having to go back and, start from scratch on his golf swing again, right? Like you think that's ridiculous. But I love that. And I think that you're thinking of rabbit in a new way, and that's going to cause you to think of other postures and the mechanics and how it works, right? It's very particular, rabbit is very interesting posture, the setup that he gets us in to do a maximum extension of your spine. It's actually incredible. You're upside down. You have to have the grip. There's specific instructions to roll forward like a wheel. And I think what he's doing is he's creating an anchor so much that the only thing left to pull with your grip nice and tight is the only thing left that will happen as you're pulling is the spine opening, right? He's getting you, he's locking you in a position, telling you specifically where the head goes, that the grip has to be, please don't lose the grip, tight grip, right? He's giving you all of these, close that gap, which is, what a lot of us are not doing, right? You've got to have your head, Emmy would say that. You've got to make sure that your forehead is on your knees to the best of your ability, of course. But then, yes, right? It's like all of that is in place for you to pull and stretch your spine top to bottom. So I love that you're like discombobulated a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm complimenting you, not insulting you. Right? That these
That's
things
fine.
these things are natural. I remember too going, the same thing like with Joanna was saying, like, spine twist, right? It's like, oh yeah, that's right. Standing bow is a spine twist. Triangle is a spine twist. That's so good. It's a story of your spine, and he's got specifics for everything. But yeah, to answer to the question, don't change the answer. Then you got to, don't compromise there, because then go back and study kind of, okay, how is this working then?
Pay attention to my scapula. See if
Well,
I can
I would
find
pay
find
attention,
that bone.
period. I would pay attention, period. Could be 6 months for you to figure out more of what rabbit's doing for you and everyone else. That's great.
Okay,
That's great.
cool. All right.
Yeah. It's awesome. I remember for years I was on the back of my head,
Hey.
and these postures are
Yeah, that came up
fascinating.
recently in one of your, I think your latest,
Yeah, I
what is it
talked about
called?
it in the grips and what happened to me.
The
I thought
grips,
I had a
right,
spider in
right.
one of my ears.
Yes.
I did until Craig Villani pointed it out, right? But yeah, and then you study the dialogue even more, right? And you start to, notice things that are in there. So, right, we're talking a lot about like the dialogue and, the descriptions and, having you understand the descriptions versus, right, the setup and the safety in the setup, right? And the and the simplicity of it. It is pretty remarkable, right? What we're doing from start to finish. So, anyway, thank you, Matt.
Yeah,
Sure.
thanks, Jeff. So, next question. Does somebody have a question?
Yeah.
Go on,
I have a
Hannah.
question. Grips. And yes, I did read that as well, Michelle. It was really cool. I shared that with all my teachers, so we had fun talking about it.
Good, amen, right? Yeah.
So how many, like, loads of students can't get their heels in Camel. They try and they just can't get back far enough. And I guess my question is about how we kind of balance what we were saying earlier about motivation and allowing them to try, even if it's just their fingertips. Or would you advise just saying to someone, just try one hand at a time and then only, because it's right hand only, all that? Or do we just let them try and grab, and if they can't grab, ignore them kind of thing, just let them keep trying?
You spent time with Diane or Terry, right, in the resident? Yeah, you spent some time teaching for them and learning. So to me, what they teach is the best thing to teach people, and many people get it, is what means go back halfway. Keep the hands on the butt, the hips. Forget about the spine. Lean back on the legs until you can grab one heel. So you have to grab another, you have to lean back a bit more to grab the other heel. And once they get that technique, almost everybody can do it. So
Okay.
ever since I learned that from them, I've taught that to everybody. Sometimes I have to wait till I get outside the room and say, let's come and do this with me. And they learn it because it ceases to be frightening for most people. The back is not involved at all. And once they understand how to lean their legs back, they can get their heels and even get the grip. So that was really a revelation to me, how to teach it effectively. And I just stick to it.
Yeah, good. I had forgotten. A really good idea. I can actually picture that now as well. A lot of people are scared though, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Yes, and that's natural. I mean, yes, but once they get used to that, and they tend to lose their fear of it.
Yeah.
But yes, they are scared, and in consequence, like someone in their first class, they do it or they don't do it. I'm not going to frighten someone, you know. It's like
and that's
not over
enough.
that anyway.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of teachers as well, I hear there's a lot that make Camel out to be like it's something to be fearful of.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it was so hung up, like we were saying, it's
Yes.
so hung up on the safety element. And at the end of the day, the student's going to do what they're going to do. You know,
Absolutely.
you have to leave them, like,
I think
get on with it.
It is safe. It is. You can bypass that by teaching the dialogue. Go back halfway. And if someone doesn't get what that is, like, you know, I didn't until I went to them. That go back halfway, and stop and then grab your heels. So you've gone back on the legs. So it ceases to become unsafe. It might be it might be frightened of it, but we're not actually asking them to do something unsafe at all, and therefore we don't have to worry about that. Again, referring to Terry, teach from love, not from fear. You know.
Yeah.
One thing I say, Hannah, is that for the longest time when I was teaching, I used to think that, you know, a good chunk of people in the room simply couldn't grab their heels, like they were too stiff. Until I had a student come into class who had a rod in her spine that fused 5 of the vertebrae of her spine. And I watched her have no problem going into Camel whatsoever, even though literally 5 of her vertebrae were not bending 1 iota. And it made me realize that it wasn't that. It was, you know, belief that you can't do it, and perhaps, you know, a lack of understanding of the actual technique or not being instructed correctly. But your ability to push your hips forward, to use your butt muscles to push your pelvis forward in the air, which is essentially to begin to do a back bend, is something that's the most primitively natural range of motion for people. Now, people can do it more or less. Any given person can do more or less of it on any given day. But it really is very doable. So I think, to just echoing what Sarah said, I think if you go back to that kind of technique, get them to engage their butt muscles and go back halfway. The people who truly will have a phenomenal problem grabbing their feet are not people who've got stiff spines. A stiff spine, you should be able to have an almost completely straight spine and still be able to grab your heels if you try the right technique. The people who might have a phenomenally difficult time grabbing their heels are people who've got significant shoulder dysfunction. If there's something dramatic going on with their shoulders that prevents the outward rotation of the shoulder. And so people like that, but they'd be special cases, there'd be rarities in the room.
And it'd be extreme, because even some of them would be dealt with by going back halfway. Because the arms are in the right
still
place,
try the right way, because the trying would help them.
Yeah, it's just a distance thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the stiffness thing as well is really interesting, because I don't know if it happened when you were there, but when those of us who are very flexible and you can back bend into it, no problems, she was saying just go back halfway, because then you eliminate the tendency to be too flexible in Camel. So the stiffness is actually serving you. You know, a person who's stiff has an advantage in doing it correctly day one.
Yeah.
So if someone's barely grabbing their heels and their body is pretty straight, and they're not really feeling the effect of being able to push the hips forward, should they keep struggling at that location or come back up, put their hands on the hips,
Go
and
back
learn to
further and grab
relax
the
more?
heels.
Yeah.
Get a solid grip on the heels.
Yeah.
Well, let's say they have
with a
that,
loose
but as they
grip, they're
push
never
forward,
gonna.
there's no bend in the spine at all.
Doesn't.
Oh, then that's their journey.
Okay.
Still, they go back halfway and grab the heels. It's the same technique, right?
But also for somebody like that, you look, if they notice if they try to push their hips forward at the beginning when you ask them to, because often the people don't, and then by the time they're halfway down, leaning back, and then it gets harder to push the hips forward. But you know, for some of them, you say, put your hands on your butt and push your hips forward. Just try that as step number 1.
Yes, I do that. Yes.
Yeah, and then and virtually everybody's going to bend a little bit, and then keep the butt engagement and go back and grab the heels.
There is
Mhm.
a student like that in one of the classes you teach. He was exactly like that, and now he has a most gorgeous camel simply by trying the right way.
Yeah.
He kept doing it over and over, little by little he got it, but he was exactly that person.
Yeah. I mean, yes, Michelle.
Your question, I love all of this. I love that we're dissecting all, but what was your question? Was the question that there was fear for the grip, or that they just weren't getting the right grip, or what was the, you know?
My original question,
Yeah.
it's a particular student who was just getting his fingertips onto his heels, and I didn't want to demotivate him because he was really trying. And I've heard a correction before about just trying one hand at a time, because it is first only right hand, and then, so whether I was saying to him, okay, Harjinder, you can't get your heels yet, but keep trying, and then maybe just try one hand at a time and keep the other hand on your hip.
Well, in
Well,
some
Dad, I'll just
sort
say
of
one at a time.
succession, yes, that is. It's slowly, isn't it? It's like in Bikram's. I've heard him teach it really slowly. Right hand down, grab the right heel, thumb outside, fingers inside. He waits. It's actually painful if you can do it. It's like but good discipline. And then left hand down. But there's still go. There's still gone. He still to go back halfway, and then comes that, and then what happens the next side? But it's not just to hold on one side. You know. That's
Yeah. A couple things. I think you said before, you know, we have to be careful as teachers, right, that we're not kind of emphasizing this posture to have it be different than any other posture, right? It's just part of it, right? You know, even though we may see a different reaction, right? And I think too, depending upon the student, if it was their first time ever bringing their hands down and you're encouraging them, that's great. But if it's somebody that, you know, has been continuously, I guess I should go back to, I think, Hannah, now that you're talking about this with the grips, right? And you said you emphasize that, I would emphasize that. I think that that's a component that a lot of students don't hear.
Yeah.
We have to say it. We have to say full hands, palms, grip, right? We need to emphasize the grip. Please don't lose the grip, right? So, because if they're not hearing it, and again, just like Raj, you said, over time, but the repetition of saying it over and over again, they'll finally get it on their own. That's the beautiful thing, right? It's yoga is self-discovery, right? That's self-realization, is they're figuring it out for themselves. But we have to make sure we're delivering it the right way, right? You know, so getting that.
And of course, the grabbing the heels, like in rabbit, is anchoring the spine. So when the spine is anchored at both ends, in this, obviously in camel, learning how to use your hip muscles to push forward to create an ever progressive arch in the front of the spine.
When you say anchoring, what do you mean by that?
Well, once you've got a grip, then you don't let go. So then,
Okay.
as you use your hip muscles, the spine has no choice but to bend. It's unavoidable, because if you aren't holding your feet and you could push your hips forward, and you see people let go of their feet, all they're doing is just basically bending their knees forward. They're not moving the spine. The whole purpose of the grip is to anchor parts of the body, so that the primary actions we're asking them to take can have effect. And also it helps with the brain's connection, that when your shoulders can't move because you're holding onto your heels, and then we say push your hips forward, you that's the only thing you have to focus on, is to push your hips forward. And so it becomes a little bit clearer in the neurology of your relationship to your body, to actually, oh, that's where my hips are. You know, it's not that people lack the muscles or lack the range of motion, it's that they lack the connection with that body part. That's why people can have breakthroughs in a single class. It's remarkable.
One small thing, if I can. So, since you put it up, please don't lose the grip. In older British English, particularly, and how Bikram says it, in that sort of, you know this, Hannah. In that sort of statement, please is not a polite request; it's an emphasis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So
please don't lose the hips. I'm going to take you out and shoot you if you let go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I sound most angry when I say that.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
The pain of death.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have another online question that was actually sent to us about a month ago. So the person was quite keen. Lydia online. She said she has a question about standing separate leg head to knee. If someone cannot touch her forehead to the knee, even though she's already bent the front knee a little bit, round the spine, chin to chest and stomach in, any tips on what she could do in order to improve this posture? I have a student who has a strong practice and pretty flexible when they do a back bend, but when she has to round the spine in some poses like this pose or rabbit, for example, her spine looks more like a flat back instead of rounded, no matter how much she tries. Therefore, the forehead is too far away from the knee. And Michelle, why don't you go first?
I think that's common.
Yeah, right. Is this head to knee? Did you say standing head to knee? Doesn't matter.
Standing separate leg head to knee.
Standing separate leg head to knee. Oh, I see. I see. Well, my first observation was we all have favorite areas of our spine, right? I mean, Bikram will say, some people could do easier back bend or an easier forward bend, right? That's in all of us, right? And that's the yoga, which is so beautiful. Even half moon right away, you're warming up right, left, side, back, forward, right, to work on the balance of your spine. Well, I'm going to jump to the end where I don't know if there's not really anything to change other than to keep trying. I mean, that's her yoga, right? If her spine isn't as giving into the, a rounded area, that's why this posture is probably very good for her, right? You want to compress. Think about the purpose of it. It's a compression posture. So just to the best of your ability, do the posture the right way. Come down, arms and head together, tuck your chin, look at your stomach, forward exactly on the knee, not on the knee, bend the right knee a little bit. Sometimes I think that, we've bent the knee prematurely and we're not down there enough yet to really see. And I've done that for years, right? I've jumped ahead. I mean, that's life. Like I already know I can't do it, so I'm going to bend my knee right now. Rather than just go down there the best that you can. You're not quite there. Don't change the spine. You're rounding it. It's supposed to be a compression. Bend the right knee or the left knee a little bit and see, right, with your stomach in nice and tight and the weight more forward, that your knee met your forehead, and surprise yourself, right? But there's no compromise, right? Arms straight, fingertips, using your fingertips against the floor to lock the right knee. And, I think Bikram is funny. I mean, he doesn't not know that this is a very hard posture. He obviously knows that, and it's right after triangle posture, right? Where we've opened everything up and now he's telling you to shut everything down, right? It's a huge compression for the glands. I find it one of the most medicinal postures that we can do. So it's the effort of trying, over and over again. There's no shortcuts in this. I don't know anything more to tell her than that, other than, saying the posture the right way and making sure that something's not wrong in how she's setting up the pose, right? So
Well, I struggled to learn this posture properly for a long time. And one thing that I observed before I understood what I was looking at was that people who could do it appeared to be very high as they came down. So people who can't do it are much lower. I'm giving like really basic how I first saw it when I started asking questions about it. And I think what I saw was that all compressions start with stretches. So you must stretch, the elbows locked, you must stretch. And from the stretched position, you put the foot and suck the stomach in. And from the stretched position, you do your compression. Now I have the better words for it, but that's what I thought in the beginning. They stay high where I go low. And when I started to stay high, it started to fall into place more. Still not the easiest posture for me, but that was that. So the compression must start with the stretch. So don't ignore that part. Don't slump into it, because it's gonna like mess you up.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of my favorite postures, and the last two times I've been at teacher training, Bikram singled me out in the room to point at me when I was doing it. So it's a posture I'm very comfortable with and very related to. And I mean, I think I'd say, if they want if they're already doing everything that the dialogue is saying to do, then I would say give them a mental model of maybe the quality of what they're doing. So, as Sarah was saying, like when you roll up a yoga mat or any kind of mat, you start at one end and you curl it up and you just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. And so, if you think about standing separate leg head to knee, if you start by stretching up and the rolling begins at your head, whereas a lot of people just go down from the hips and then attempt to round up into a ball to touch their forehead to the knee. But if you think about coming down like you're rolling up your body, like you were rolling up a yoga mat, so it starts at the top of the spine with the throat choked, which is really a very crucial, the Jalabandha is a very crucial part of that posture from a therapeutic perspective. Then you're trying to stay as high as possible as you go down with your stomach in. So that if you do it like that, then the work of your abdomen and the work of your legs becomes more apparent, that all of that's supposed to be strong and unbending and unyielding as you roll up. And then your forehead will or will not touch your knee on any given day, depending on where you're at with your range of motion. But technique-wise, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to maintain the Jalabandha as you roll up and suck your stomach in to round the spine, to stretch the back of the spine, just like you would in rabbit. It's a very powerful posture. There are things you can do outside of the room with the student that has a persistent longevity of a struggle with this. We do this in workshops. We have a workshop on this particular stretchings and compressions later this year, which would be you can have the person try to do this posture outside of the room. You can have them try to do this posture, but instead of their arms over their head, have them grab their elbows behind their back and try to come down. And that forces them to learn how to keep the upper body elevated, and it forces them to understand how to use their shoulders and to how to use their abdomen. And so for some students, they have an aha moment when they do that. So that when they go back in the room and try the normal, correct way to do the posture, it's already different. That's something I'd add.
There's one sort of thing that, Bikram always says as well, which he doesn't tell us the size of the student's step. He'll always say bigger step, bigger step. So, and that almost everybody needs bigger step. But if you look at his picture of him doing it, he has an enormous step, especially given his height. He has an enormous step relative to his height, and he has a very good standing supinated knee.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sarah. I think we have better success. I don't know why we don't step out. I mean, I'm a victim to it too. Bikram has called me out twice, not to compliment me like Matt, but to say open your legs more, right? In this posture. But it is the right way, right? And you have better success, right?
Yeah. I think the other thing I would add here as well is that aside from having a big step, is that your knees should be fundamentally locked, ideally through the whole posture, but certainly all the way down. So you shouldn't let the knee bend, not even a millimeter as you're coming down. Now, when you come down, you may or may not get your forehead to touch the knee. And once you're down at your maximum rounding, your maximum compression, and there's a gap between your forehead and knee, then the dialogue says, then bend the knee a little bit. But only once you've already completed the entry to the posture, not as you're going into the posture. Because if you bend the knee as you're going into posture, you're just throwing it all away. And you'll never learn how to do the posture correctly if you bend the knee as you're coming into the posture.
Yeah, I just want to say all these are discoveries of your spine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this person, even though she can't touch. There's a lot of us, you can't took me years to figure that out. But that's why we do this, the repetition, right? Just over and over. And every other posture before that one is helping to create better success in this one. So there's nothing wrong. I see sometimes people trying to force their head. I'm like, no, don't. I mean, right where you, yeah, exactly. I know, right? You're right where you need to be, and you just keep trying every day, right? It's the
There's
point.
one thing that happened in one of our workshops. It's like reminds me of what Hannah was asking about the camel, and like it's very easy for us to develop an idea that a student can't do it, like something about their body says they can't do it. That there was a student in one of our workshops doing these compressions head to knee, this posture and rabbit and other similar ones, and she said she'd never been able to get her forward to touch the knee in any of the postures we do forward to do, any of them, and so it was just convinced that it was her spine. She's a flat back kind of person, and it's just inevitable. And we did a little experiment where we had her kneel down, one leg up and one leg down, and touch her forehead to knee. And she just looked palpably shocked that she was able to touch her forehead to her knee. So it shattered that story that this is not possible with my body. And I think that's a really good attitude to have with the Bikram Yoga, is just let go of the stories that you can't do it, or the stories that you think your students can't do it, and just have them try the right way as best they can every day.
Yeah.
We have 5 minutes left, so if there's one more quick question, let's go for it. Bobby, you're still going to have to find the
Unmute.
mute button, my friend.
Unmute.
There
Hi,
we go.
is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, hi, Michelle. Hi, Matt. Hi, Sarah. Hi,
Hi.
hi, Hannah.
How's it
Hi.
going?
It's great.
Congrats.
Great to see you. Thank you. Hey, I have a funny story. I just wanted to say, sorry. So, I'm teaching at Bikram Yoga Folsom, Izzy and Ryan's studio. So Izzy's pregnant again. And so she's teaching a class, but it's with recording. So I was in the class yesterday and I'm listening to this class, I'm in the class doing it. I'm listening to, wow, I'm like, this dialogue is amazing. Like it's so spot on and everything. And wonderful dialogue. And so at the end, I asked her, so who was that? Who was giving the dialogue on that recording? And she said, oh, it's Sarah from BYSJ. It was great. Wonderful dialogue in the class. It was fun. But yeah, I'm having a great time teaching in the studio here at Bikram Yoga Folsom. Thank you so much, Michelle, for your inspiration, and it's great to meet you, Matt and Sarah. And Hannah, we met at the last BYTT.
Yeah.
Spring
Hey, Bobby.
2025. Great to see
Well
you
done.
again.
You too.
So thank you. Yeah, I do have one question. So Cobra, it says, and this came up in Posture Clinic, it says use 100% of your back strength, right? And I even got called out on Bikram about this because, I'm not getting, and I see this in a lot of my students, don't get the elevation, right? Don't get 90-degree elbow angle there. And so the question is, how much can you cheat with your hands? It says use 100% of your back strength, but does that mean use all of your back strength and then augment, elevation with your hands? Or can you comment on that? Like how much of your hands can you use to like really engage, and get more elevation?
Just really quickly, I'm going to comment on the language, and then that's going to be my contribution. It doesn't say the word only is scattered around in the dialogue, but it's not in that sentence. It says use 100% of your back strength. It doesn't say use only your back strength. So that's the linguistic part, and then I'm going to stop.
Yeah, and it's Michelle, do you want to?
Go ahead, Matt, then I can add.
So, and it says, come up halfway and that your arms should be an L, 90-degree angle.
Yeah.
So if your arms are not a 90-degree angle, then your hands weren't in the right place to begin with. That's one thing. As Sarah said, use your 100% back strength to come up. But also your legs and your hip muscles are fundamental to this. If you're not using them, you'll never be able to come up very far. And also the other key one in Cobra is stretch your elbows down towards your waist, which again is using the shoulder blades and the shoulder muscles, all 16 of the shoulder muscles, to help articulate the top of the spine. So again, connecting back to rabbit and camel, that there's two ends to your spine. There's the legs and your hips anchoring the bottom of the spine. There's your arms and your shoulder blades anchoring the top of the spine, all helping you with the process. But you're using 100% back strength.
Yeah, it's much, all your back strength, but you answered the question, which was my feeling too. You have to augment with your hand.
Yeah, but not by pushing up.
I wouldn't.
Not pushing up.
Okay.
The instruction is you're asked to glue your hands down. You're asked to put your hands in the right place, and then you're asked to glue the hands down and not move them during the posture. And then you're asked to stretch your elbows down towards your waist. He didn't say push your hands against the floor. He said stretch your elbows down to waist. So what happens when I do that? That causes me to do this. It helps me with the lifting, but the anchor is your hips, your legs, your thigh muscles, which he told you to make strong and glued together like a cobra. So again, it's one of the things where going back to the words again and looking at them and thinking about what's being asked here would be helpful, I think.
I'm gonna thank you. I know we're at 3:30. I would not talk about the weight in the hands at all. Bobby, don't do that. And I think we have a misunderstanding of this posture. Your hand placement is so key. And if you think about it over time, you guys, the hands, the way they are, they're an extension of the cobra tail. If you're really doing it right and concentrate on it. So what I see when I see the students don't have their legs in a cobra's tail tight, solid tight one piece,
Yeah.
they're,
Knees locked when
then I know
toes.
they're using their arms. I don't talk to that, but then it becomes in a push-up. So you have to make sure that you say the dialogue correctly so that they have everything. They have to have the good form. You have to have the cobra's tail, right? And then, right, Bikram is so smart. He's telling you to look up towards the ceiling, inhale and lift, come up halfway, belly button on the floor, upper body's in the air. At the same time, arms making an L like he's giving you all of this description to get up there appropriately.
Yes.
Right.
Especially, and another one which Matt
Yeah.
mentioned is don't omit stretch your elbows down towards your hips. Stretch your elbows down towards your hips.
That's a
Mhm.
That's
big,
fundamental. That's a
that's
really
a big
big one.
part of it. But
Yeah.
if they're not having the form in place, then it becomes
Yeah.
fingers open, elbows are out, right? So
Yeah. Because remember, Cobra's like a standing back bend. You could do Cobra against a wall. You could go up to a wall, put your hands on the wall in the right position, and then stretch up and back. You could do that. It's an extension of the spine. So the legs, the arms are really key in that. Not a push-up at all. Not remotely a push-up.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. We are out of time. I always think we could do with more time, but maybe an hour, 90 minutes is the perfect duration for these things.
Is that Jeff down there? Is that Jeff?
Yes, it is.
There.
Hello.
Jeff?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there you are. Hi there.
Hi. I'm here sitting in the middle of a creek in a chair with my llamas.
Wow. That's a real farm.
Yeah. So
Nice to
thought
have
he
you
said his
join us.
llamas.
Nice to have you join us, Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, yeah. So, come again in 3 months' time. If you can't come, don't forget that you can send in questions. That's always helpful. And thank you all for being here today. That's fabulous.
That was great discussion.
And we'll obviously, it won't take us that long to process the recording and post it. So look out for the recording as well.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Welcome.
Joel,
Thank
Angie,
you.
lovely to
Thank
see you
you.
both.
Yeah. Woohoo.
Good night.
Barry, have a wonderful day.
Good night, Hannah. Sleep well.